Welcome into NFL Daily. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today, we're going to be taking a look at every single rookie quarterback that got taken in the 2025 NFL Draft, and I'm going to be letting you guys know what I think of their situations. Do I think that they're set up for success, or do I think that maybe they're not in the best possible situation for them to succeed in this league? We're going to be talking about a lot of quarterbacks today on the show, so make sure you guys click that subscribe button. If you guys want more NFL quarterback content from me, Jack Sperry on X, you can find me at Jack_Sperry. Going to be putting out a bunch of QB stuff throughout the offseason as I put together my new quarterback rankings list before the 2025 season kicks off. So if you guys want that in-depth analytical analysis on X, I'm going to put a bunch of stuff on there. You can find me at Jack_Sperry. Really do appreciate all of your guys' support. So let's start here with the first overall pick, Cam Ward going to the Tennessee Titans. And I do think that this is a good situation for him to eventually find success in. Now, my pro comp for Cam Ward is actually kind of, I think, more of a unique one that I haven't heard from too many places, and it's Brock Purdy. They're very similar sizes. They're both rotational passers. They both throw with incredible anticipation and have good instincts as playmakers out of structure. But kind of like Purdy, I do think Ward is the type of QB that's going to need, a really good supporting cast around him if he wants to put up the kinds of numbers Brock Purdy has in his first few seasons there with the San Francisco 49ers. But I do think he is set up for success here. They have invested on the offensive line there in Tennessee. They brought in his guy Xavier Restrepo as a UDFA. They drafted Alec Iamaner out of Stanford, who's a big body receiver. They brought in Tyler Lockett, a deep threat receiver. They still have Calvin Ridley. They've got a pretty decent infrastructure in place there in Nashville for him. So if Brian Callahan and his coaching staff there in Tennessee know what the hell they're doing, this guy should be a success in the National Football League, and I'm excited to see what he does there with the Titans in the years to come. Then the New York Giants trade up for Jaxson Dart in round one, trading back into round one to pair him up with Abdul Carter in that first round class for the G-men this year. And, they gave up quite a bit to go get him. They gave up the number 34 overall pick as well as the number 99 overall pick. That was a third rounder, and then their third rounder next year as well to go get their guy. And in terms of all the places that I think Jaxson Dart could have ended up, I think that this was probably about as good of a situation as he could have landed in. He doesn't have to play right away. The Giants have both Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston to kind of be the veterans in that room to guide him on his rookie journey. I thought Jaxson Dart showed a lot of, starter quality stuff on his film at Ole Miss. He can make some big time throws, particularly to the intermediate level of the field, and he stands in that pocket, and he is super tough, and he's a dog competitor, which I love, and Brian Dable loves as well. He's also a plus rusher in the run game as well, but I did think the mental processing and some of the pocket presence stuff does need to get a little bit better heading into the National Football League, and now he has the opportunity to sit and learn behind two former franchise quarterbacks and before he eventually takes the reins here in New York. So I do think that Dart was the guy that kind of needed to take a little bit of time before he was ready to start, and I think that this situation in New York gives him the proper tools, a good offensive play caller in Brian Dable. He's got Malik Neighbors as a future number one wide receiver. The future certainly seems bright there in New York, and Jaxson Dart is a part of that bright future now. But then you get Tyler Shuck out of Louisville going to the New Orleans Saints, and this is another situation that I think sets the quarterback up for success because Tyler Shuck needed to go to a place because he is so goddamn old. He needed to go somewhere where he had a chance to prove himself really early on in his NFL career. And lo and behold, he goes to the team where Derek Carr ends up retiring just shortly after they draft him. So it's certainly looking like Shuck is going to have every opportunity to start for the New Orleans Saints this year. And they've got guys like Chris Olave, who's an elite route runner. He's going to be open consistently for him. Rashid Shaheed is a deep threat. Brandon Cooks is another good route runner in that offense. And you got guys like Alvin Kamara in the run game to help, carry some of the load offensively. They also invested on the offensive line there in New Orleans. So, with Kellen Moore coming in, first-year head coach, he really has the chance to build up something new there in New Orleans with Tyler Shuck. And Shuck is somebody that I thought was one of, if not the most pro-ready quarterback in this entire class. Now, he's going to have to get better against, handling pressure and all these different things. And, he is certainly coming into this thing with some injury history, and also he is so goddamn old. He really does need to prove himself in year one if the Saints aren't going to replace him in 2026, next year's NFL draft. But if he's going to succeed anywhere, I do think it's going to be in New Orleans. Then speaking of really good situations for quarterbacks, I also think Jalen Milroe, the fourth quarterback taken, going to Seattle, that is a perfect situation for somebody like Milroe who needed to sit at least 1 year, potentially 2 years, before you think about giving him the reins of an NFL offense, all right? And with Seattle, they just invested in Sam Darnold, who, is a good quarterback. He's going to be able to handle the reins and, be the franchise quarterback in the short to maybe intermediate term. But long term, you got a guy in Jalen Milroe who could be a legitimate superstar quarterback if he can develop in the correct ways. And something that I really love about what Seattle has done this offseason is that they have invested in the cognized virtual reality technology that teams like the Washington Commanders and the Minnesota Vikings in previous seasons invested in. And Jaden Daniels has been doing that since his final season at LSU. And he actually told the Washington Commanders last year, if you're going to draft me, you have to invest in this technology. And what has Daniels done? Oh, he's only become, one of the best college quarterbacks ever in his final season at LSU, winning the Heisman Trophy, leading right into one of the best rookie quarterback seasons we've ever seen in his rookie campaign with the Washington Commanders. Sam Darnold is the person that kind of got the Seattle Seahawks on this trend of using the VR technology. He saw a big jump in his production after using that VR with the Minnesota Vikings last year. So the fact that you got Jalen Milroe in a situation here that he's a massive physical talent. I had him ranked as my number 2 overall quarterback in this class because of the upside he brings to the table with his size and his speed and his arm talent. Now you put him in a situation where he doesn't have to play right away and he can learn the game and get better with the mental processing stuff with this VR technology. If he's going to succeed anywhere in the National Football League, guys, I think it's going to be right here in Seattle, and the Seahawks may have just found their next superstar quarterback of the future here in Jalen Milroe. But then you get to the Cleveland Browns here, and I've been pretty positive so far when it comes to, the kind of quarterback situations. I think the Browns situation is probably the least desirable here because not only do you get Dillon Gabriel in round 3, but then you trade up to get Shedeur Sanders to compete with them in round 5. And honestly, I'm not sure if either one of these guys are going to work out in Cleveland. Not only is the Cleveland Browns organization just rife with dysfunction and all these different things, they couldn't even make, Deshaun Watson work, all these different things. But Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders are two guys that are kind of weaker-armed quarterbacks playing in the AFC North, having to play twice a year against Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. We'll see what the Pittsburgh Steelers end up doing with their quarterback situation. But Gabriel, what he's known for is having a weak arm, and Shedeur Sanders has definitely a below-average arm for an NFL quarterback. And you got to play in the wind, you got to play in the cold, you got to play in the rain, you got to play in the snow late in the season in this division. And honestly, I just don't really see this organization making it right with guys like Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel, who in my opinion need a lot of help around them, both structurally with coaching and then also talent around them to be able to make it work. But if I'm going to pick one quarterback between these two that I think could be their franchise quarterback of the future, I will actually go with Shedeur Sanders. Now, you guys know, if you've been watching this channel, you guys know I'm not the biggest fan of Shedeur Sanders. All right, I had him ranked as the 5th quarterback in my quarterback rankings this year. But I do think, he's a decent fit for what Cleveland wants to do schematically there, kind of be a distributor, be a point guard, all these different things. If they can put the right coaching and the right pieces around him, he could become a decent starting quarterback in this league, in my opinion. But honestly, to be frank, when we're talking about the 2025 season for the Cleveland Browns, Joe Flacco is their best option in that quarterback room, in my opinion. You're dealing with Flacco, Pickett, Gabriel, and then Shedeur Sanders. I think Flacco probably starts the season as the starter, and then I think that this season probably turns pretty ugly pretty quickly for this team, where they eventually go to Shedeur Sanders over Dillon Gabriel. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Who is going to win out with the Browns quarterback situation between these two rookies? Type SS if you think Shedeur Sanders, or type DG if you think Dillon Gabriel will end up winning this competition. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section for today's pin question. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds, and when that happens, take advantage of that time. But let me know who you think the quarterback of the future is in Cleveland. And with that, let's have word from our sponsor today at Fanatics. Go to chatsports.com/NFL jersey to pick up your favorite NFL team's rookie jersey right now from our friends at Fanatics. And here's the deal, guys. If you want to help us out here at Chat Sports, you appreciate all the free content that we give to you guys, not only here on NFL Daily, but on all of our individual team channels. You guys can help us out right now by going to chatsports.com/NFL jersey. That link is in the comments and description of today's show. And if you guys make a purchase, Fanatics will send us part of the proceeds. So thank you guys so much for all of your support. If you want to get a brand new rookie jersey for your favorite NFL team today, just go to chatsports.com/NFL jersey and get that job done today. Let me get into some of the later round quarterbacks here. Kyle McCord from Syracuse, I think is somebody that is going to be a good backup in the league. I think he's got kind of a longer release. He doesn't have the strongest arm in the world. He's not the best athlete in the world. He doesn't have a lot of high-end physical traits, but I do think he throws with anticipation. I think he does a good enough job diagnosing defenses pre-snap. And if, God forbid, Jalen Hurts goes down with an injury, I think you can trust Kyle McCord on an NFL field in a spot starter type of role. I really don't see him, progressing past that unless he turns into a remarkable Brock Purdy type of story here where he's awesome. He's truly elite in the mental processing areas of the game, which I don't see happening with McCord, but I think he'll be decent competition for Tanner McKee for the backup quarterback spot there in Philly coming out of Syracuse. Then you got Will Howard in round 6 going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think Howard's got some nice tools at his disposal when he really grips it and rips it. He's got a strong arm. He's got really good size. He's a plus rusher that can run with some power. There's things to like about Will Howard. He's very intelligent as well. But I do think there are things that in his game that he needs to get a lot better at if he's ever going to have a chance to be the starting quarterback there in Pittsburgh. The mental processing needs to get better. There's a lot of one read to run or one read to check down type of quarterbacking at Ohio State last year. The accuracy is a big issue to all levels of the field, in my opinion. He completed over 70% of his passes last year at Ohio State, but I'm not joking when I'm saying that he had such a good supporting cast at Ohio State last year. It should have been 80% if he was a first overall pick quality quarterback. Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka, multiple first rounders on that offensive line. There were certainly points during the season last year where you're like, this guy's not very good. Now, he did play his best football down the stretch in the college football playoffs, which is why the Buckeyes were able to win the national championship with him under center. And he does have some starter quality tools, but he does have a ways to go, and he has a lot to prove being a 6th-round pick heading into his tenure there with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Some other late-round quarterbacks worth mentioning here, and that got drafted this year. Riley Leonard didn't have a draftable grade on him. I think he's going to stink with the Colts. Same thing with Graham Mertz with the Houston Texans. I think he's going to be garbage. Cam Miller, we'll talk about him in a little bit here. The Curtis Rourke, going to be garbage with San Francisco, in my opinion. The two guys I'd keep my eye on this list here of round 7 guys is Cam Miller out of NDSU. He's got a pretty decent arm, and, apparently Tom Brady himself, kind of endorsed him to the Las Vegas Raiders front office. So keep your eye on Cam Miller with the Las Vegas Raiders. And then Quinn Ewers does have good arm talent. There's a reason why he's been kind of in way too early mock drafts in the first round for the last 3-4 years previous to this year. But he just didn't really put it all together with Texas. I do like the fit between Ewers and the Dolphins offense, allows him to play in rhythm, all that different stuff. So keep your eye on Cam Miller and Quinn Ewers here from this kind of crop of late round quarterbacks. So predict it for me down there in the comment section. Will there be any surprises when it comes to successes at the quarterback position here during the 2025 NFL draft class? Do you think Jalen Milroe comes out in 2 years and plays MVP caliber football after 2 years sitting behind Sam Darnold? Do you think Will Howard comes out of nowhere and plays well for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. And with that, that'll be it for today's show, guys. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Again, you can follow me on Twitter at Jack_Sperry if you want more quarterback analysis from me on social media. But that'll be it for today's show, guys. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And until next time, guys, peace out.